I've only got 10 minutes to talk about this, and really what I am doing is talking around the work of a steering group that's been established fairly recently with the LGBTQIA plus early years group, and I'm here to present on behalf of the entire group. So there are 16 of us in total from all over the country, and representative of the LGBTQIA community, as well as allies, and we'll have a look at everybody that's part of that group in a minute. But I'm Gary Coffey. I'm the head teacher of a special school in Derby, and our special school is for children between the ages of 2 to 19. And really our work as a steering group is focusing on the early years. As we've just said, Victoria, it's the most important phase of education. It's when children are learning lots about the world around them. And we felt that as a group of people, it was really important to ensure that the quality of provision and support for the early years, especially with regards to LGBTQ and the representation with that, was really well thought through, well planned, and that the professionals and the practitioners working within that setting had the confidence to understand what that looked like. And we know that it can be a really challenging thing to sometimes talk about and ensure that you're doing it properly. I know that there was lots of discussions, especially in the panel group earlier, around tokenism, and we're trying to ensure that this isn't just a tokenistic tick thing for settings. This should be something that is part and parcel of everyday life, really, in all earlier settings. So I am, as I said, 1/16 of a larger group of people that have helped to really bring this to life. So I've just come to talk a little bit about that. So the steering group started around May of this year, so it's not long been established. I think we can thank the lockdown for being able to provide some time for everybody to be able to come together and work towards a really important cause. And we just want to ensure, as I said, that we promote that inclusivity within earlier settings. And it's important to note that it isn't just schools, although I work in a school and other people within the group do. We actually have that representation from childminders, nannies, people from lots of different earlier settings as well. So this is something that we want everybody within that earlier sector from 0 to 7 to be a part of and to be aware of. We want an opportunity to be able to showcase the best practice. We aren't reinventing the wheel as part of our steering group. There's some great things that are already out there at the moment. Stonewall have done some really positive work, and one of our members of the steering group actually worked with Stonewall to create some of the early resources as well. So we're trying to develop those and further share those more widely, as well as looking at positive examples of the work that's been done so far. Part of our work as the steering group has been to ask other settings for case studies of what they've done to really bring LGBTQIA into their settings, to bring it to life, to make sure that it's that lived and breathed experience. We've got some great examples from schools in Scotland, from some settings and earlier settings in England. So we really are looking at sort of outside of England as well, at the whole of the UK. And also, as you said, making sure that practitioners have got that confidence to talk about issues within their own setting, with children they work with their families and with staff. We're really fortunate that Dr. Valerie, who was on the panel earlier, is also part of our steering group. And she talks a lot about creating safe spaces. And one of the things that she's focused on within the group is to ensure that that is something that we really promote and people are aware of what that is and why that safe space is so important. You know, we aren't blindsided. We understand fully that this can be quite a challenging conversation for some staff, for some families and with some children. I know that earlier on in the panel, Emma was talking about parents can be a brilliant ally for supporting great causes, but sometimes they can also hinder that experience, and it's really important that we get their buy-in and they understand why we're doing things. And I think that was proven as well in Birmingham more recently last year with the No Outsiders programme, and there was some tension within some of the communities within Birmingham when that was rolled in. So it's looking at why that was and trying to work with all of those different groups of people to ensure that we are creating those spaces to make it as effective as it can be. We'll also be looking at creating a platform for settings to access really supportive and meaningful resources. So as a great way of being able to signpost to some great books and some great resources that have been written, but also to try and get people to communicate and talk with each other. I think lockdown has taught us all that things like Zoom and Teams are a great way of being able to connect very quickly and instantly with people that could be 300 miles away. And we want to get people talking to each other rather than just reading something that, you know, maybe on a site or maybe in a book somewhere. You know, learning from each other is probably the most effective thing that we can do at the moment. And also, we're going to be using some of that research-informed practice to show how every child can feel valued and included. So it won't just be the opinions of some people within the group. We're going to be really looking at what that meaningful research-informed practice is telling us, how we can do it effectively to, again, create that safe space to support LGBTQIA agenda within early years settings. And we focus on early years. I mean, you know, we love it to go through every setting of every age, but as you've said, the group are made up of professionals from the early years workforce, and we thought that actually that's a great place to start, because if we can start as children begin their education, their learning, they can take that knowledge that they pick up with them throughout. So as I've said, the steering group is a large group of people. We meet virtually quite a lot of the time, and you might recognise quite a few of the faces that are on the screen. As I mentioned, Dr. Valerie Daniel is one of our steering group members, as is Sharifa Lee, and I believe she's speaking next, so I'll be able to wave to her before she starts her presentation as well. And as you can see, it's a representative group from those within the community, as well as its allies and supporters as well. And we have got a web page which I'll link to at the end, and you can read everybody's biography and find out more about them and who we are and why we're particularly interested in supporting the steering group. But I thought it was really important just to know that everybody is giving up their time for free to work on this project. So a huge thank you to everybody that is part of it and is there celebrating and sharing and talking on social media about it, because it is a really exciting project to be a part of. So there are three key areas that we thought we'd look at while we created this group. We wanted to ensure that we had something that covered working with children, and you'll see some of the areas that entailed around the neuroscience, around the brain, using the voice of the child. You know, they can tell us exactly what we need to do better, and also looking at some activities that we could do with children. The second area is around working with families, and again, celebrating difference and challenging those gender stereotypes and being really aware of family culture and the religion and the values and how they may be different to our own, but being different doesn't mean that it's wrong, and we need to be aware of it and promote all of those. And then in practice, for everybody that's working in those earlier settings, what can we do to support staff? Again, looking at that safe space, and also things such as the laws and policies that cover the work that we need to be doing, like the Equality Act, etc., to ensure that we are working within the framework legally. And also we have that moral duty, don't we, to ensure that children are taught a broad and range set of skills to support them as they grow up and live in modern Britain as we are. So they're the three areas that we are really focusing on. And in order to try and make it a success, even though we all work and do this for free as part of the other jobs that we have, we did realise that we needed some funds to help us. So we set up a GoFundMe page earlier in June to raise £1,000 so that we can create some resources that can be shared. And the way that we're going to try and do that easily is to create a magazine that will be available for earlier settings, as I've said, not just schools, but childminders as well, that will have lots of articles and resources. And I'm delighted to say that we've already raised the £1,000. Family, the organisation, very generously match funded the money that we'd raised from the public to date, and so we're now just over the £1,000 mark. But we are still continuing to raise money, so that this is a real longevity to the programme. and we can continue to support settings and roll out even more work and more resources as we go. So, as I said, with the funds that we've raised so far and the work that's been going on behind the scenes with those 3 areas, we are looking at publishing a magazine which will come out around January time. That will consist of lots of case studies, as we've talked about, from all over the UK. It will have lots of research-informed evidence and blogs and articles and resources, as well as contact details, so we can start networking and getting people to talk to each other and sharing their experiences. We're also creating a children's picture book. We've got an illustrator who's part of the group and has already designed a fantastic logo for us, which will be launched in the next few months. And he's helping to create that book, which is focused on positive LGBTQIA and what that would look like within a setting. It's very exciting, but I can't say too much because I'll give it away. And then in January 2021, because of COVID, we've had to push it back slightly. We will be looking at launching a celebration week where the magazine will be available, the book will be available, and it will really just be a way of celebrating the work that's been done to date and trying to get more settings aware of the LGBTQIA in the early years group and trying to begin the work really in full. So if you're interested in finding out more, we have got our own website, which is lgbtqearlyyears.org, and on there you'll see there is information about the working group. There are already lots of blogs on there that have been written by the working group, as well as other people within the UK that you can refer to. We are on Twitter, and hopefully our Twitter account is tweeting at the moment, so please feel free to follow them. And if you'd like to, we are still, as I said, accepting donations through the GoFundMe page, which will help us to ensure that we can continue the longevity of the programme moving forward. So, yes, that was it. A little bit about the group. So I'm happy to talk to you a bit more, Victoria, about it, if you want me to.
I do, and I'm going to actually bring Sharifa in as well, who is still here, or who has joined us. Hello, Sharifa.
Hello, hello. Hello, Gary. Guys, you were amazing. You were just amazing. Wow. You know, I was actually messaging Gary. We were just sort of, asking after each other as well. And Gary said, "Are you ready?" Well, I will not be as flashy as you, Gary. What you see is definitely just what you get.
It's more of a t-shirt, I think. That's the flashiest thing I had.
Love it. Love it. Do you know, just because I'm actually at school, I'm in somebody else's desk. I'm at school because the contractors are in. So I'm actually on my iPhone because, like Toria knew this morning, I had technical difficulties. I did not even know whether I could come on. So I can see the two of you on a very small screen.
That's enough. You don't want me to. I'll scare everybody off.
So tell me more. Well, I've got both of you here. Tell me more. Tell me what wasn't in the presentation.
So I think the thing that really sparked it was ensuring that there was representation. I think lockdown made us realise that children not being in a setting within the early years, whether that was a school setting or a childminder setting, had the potential to really limit their experiences. And I know that you were talking about before that lived experience.
Yeah.
Within the steering group, we've got people from all over the UK. Some of our members live in a very rural area of the UK, and we have one very proud lesbian mother who has a wonderful family, and she said that in her school where she works, in her setting, she's actually the only lesbian, the only LGBTQI person within that whole community. So actually, who have those children got to see as a role model if they're not seeing her every day and talking to her and asking questions? And then we've sort of got thinking more widely around, well, actually, we've got people, which are really important. What about resources? And, do all of the earlier settings know about, for example, the earlier Stonewall work that was published last year? And even within our group, lots of us weren't sure of it or only knew bits of it. And so we thought, well, if we can try and create something, a community that is there for people to ask questions and find out more, we're not the oracle. We don't know every answer, but what we do know is a lot of people we can refer to and speak to and find out more from. And just to make it something that people don't need to be worried about or afraid to talk about. You know, I know Dr. Valerie earlier talked about children need to see themselves represented, whether that's in books, whether that's through people, whether that's in, you know, displays and celebrations. And I think, like James mentioned as well in the panel was really good. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, really good. I learned so much from it. And James said, you know, it was about having his eyes opened and people showing him the world. And that's really what we want to try and do is, you know, our settings feel like the world to us because we're in them all the time. But actually there's such a bigger environment that happens. So from a little seed, we've grown it into this bigger sort of community really that's there to support people.
That's absolutely fantastic. Gary, can I ask that you pop all of the website and etc. and your PowerPoint and everything onto the Padlet, and then everyone can just if I then share that, then everyone can just see very clearly and can sort of and they can see exactly who's on it, how to contact you, and so on. Yeah. I have absolutely no doubt because there's going to be a video at some point over the next few days prior to starting school. I am going to be putting all of these videos up on YouTube. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. I'm hoping Ben Brown's going to help me. But
can I just say, you've just committed him. You've said his name. He's committed.
You've been named. He did say at one point that he was going to help. But I mean, it's just, you know, at the moment we're on 5 hours 19. It's been live, and that's all got to be broken down into little videos. I have no clue how to do that. I'll be honest. None. So yes, but I think once that goes live on YouTube, actually early years settings, seeing that and then becoming more aware of the work that you're doing, it's really powerful work.
Oh, thank you.
And I think them knowing that they're able to reach out and ask questions, and the panel talked a lot about that as well, knowing where to ask the questions and actually not being afraid to ask the questions is absolutely
yeah. And you're right, Toria, because we, you know, the people in the steering group as well, we come from, although majority of us have got are from earlier settings, we come from all walks of life, and not all of us identify ourselves with LGBTQIA as well. And for me, the purpose and the passion that came across in that group, because a lot of us are, you know, we have family members or we have sisters, brothers. For me, it's my daughter who is gay, you know, she's a lesbian. And it was, and we talked about that on our podcast as well. In the early hours of the morning.
If you haven't heard the podcast from Sharifa and I, we've started a new podcast where we just basically talk because that's what we like doing. So it goes out once a month called Chatterbox. Find it. It's out there somewhere.
Yeah. And it's about a group of people who are just passionate about inclusion, about acceptance, no longer just about tolerance. I think sometimes we choose the wrong word, and part of you know, the government's idea of British values as well, this word tolerance, it isn't about tolerance, it's about accepting people for who they are and seeing them for who they are. I mean, the conversations in the panel, Gary, you're absolutely right, was amazing. And it is about seeing people because of their color, their identity, because they're a woman, because they're a man, because of their gender, because, you know, we can see them. And I think that today has been so powerful because it's not just about voices, we can see the people who we can be as well. And Toria, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Gary, it's been lovely having you, but I'm going to get rid of you now. So you.
That's all right. Thank you. Thanks for having us, and thank you, Toria.
Bye, Gary.